All right, now I'm recording and let me put my phone on silent. So we have coming up on the 19th of October, we have our CBWNI monthly brunch. That's going to be at the Alliance Center here in Stockbridge. That is 101 Eagles Point Parkway at 11 a.m. And you can purchase tickets for that brunch on our website. That's www.cbwintl.org. So again, that is our monthly brunch, and that is going to be on October 19th. We invite you to come out, tell a friend, visit our website to purchase tickets. And then the second announcement is we have a fall festival coming up on October the 26th. And so that is also going to be at our office in Stockbridge, and you can find all of that information on Eventbrite and also on the website as well. All right, so we got those announcements out of the way. So now we're going to dive in. This webinar is 5 questions every parent should ask their child's teacher. So right about now, you should be getting the first report card. If you haven't gotten it, usually at some point in October, you get that first grade report to indicate to you how your child is doing. So we want to equip you with some good questions that you want to ask your child's teacher to really get more insight into how they're actually doing in school. So we're going to dive right on in here. All right, so again, this webinar should be around 40 to 45 minutes, and we will make sure that we leave time at the end for you to ask questions that you have. You might want to grab a piece of paper and a pen because I'm going to share some resources with you that you might want to jot down as well. But this is recorded, so it will be uploaded to our YouTube page. So if you want to go back and rewatch it or share with family members and friends, it will be on our CBWNI YouTube. And again, at the end, we will make sure we leave time for you to ask questions. All right, so this is a quick overview. These are the 5 questions that we're going to be digging deep into during this webinar. So the first one is about behavior progress. So what are my child's strengths and areas of growth as it relates to behavior? Number 2, academic progress. What do my child's grades represent? Now that might seem like an obvious question, but we're gonna dig into why that's important for you to ask. Number 3, what should I expect my child to know and be able to do this semester? Number 4, what skills should my child be practicing consistently at home? And number 5, what are the daily routines of your classroom? And of course, at the end, we'll leave time for you to ask questions. All right, so my name is Danielle Koja. I think I know just about everybody that I saw come into the webinar so far, but I am a founding member of CBWNI, and I'm also the founder and executive director of Queen Academy. We are a nonprofit that does Christian mentoring specifically with girls who are in foster care, alternative school, and kinship care. I'm also a licensed foster parent. I've been a foster parent since 2020. And I also partner with my husband. We have a business called BTG Education LLC, and that's an umbrella company. So underneath that umbrella of BTG Education, we also have BTG Education Consulting, we have BTG Medical Academy, and then we also have BTG Math Tutoring. So under that umbrella, we have a few different entities that we operate. I've been an educator for the last 16 years. So I've been a classroom teacher, assistant principal, and also worked at the district level as a leadership coach and now an education consultant. So again, excited to share this information with you. I love working with parents. In one of the consulting partnerships I have now, I work with an online private school, and I have about 32 parents that I coach who are just transitioning to homeschool. So parents that, have decided that public school is no longer for them and they're in their first year of homeschooling. I do bi-weekly coaching with them, basically just to teach them strategies for how to teach their children at home. So I love working with parents. All right, so our icebreaker, the link is in the chat. You can click it. So we have a question here. How often do you receive parent communication from your child's teacher or teachers, and what methods do they use to communicate with you? So if you can click that link that's in the chat, there's a little plus down there. Once you click the link for you to add your comment. How often right now do you receive communication from your child's teacher, or if you have a middle schooler or a high schooler, they probably have lots of teachers, at least 5 or 6. How often do you receive communication, and then what methods do they use to communicate with you? So go ahead and drop your thoughts there in the chat, and we'll see. They should start to pop up on the screen. All right, so I see somebody said once daily, so they use Remind, Class Dojo. That's a popular one, Class Dojo. Remind is that text platform. Okay, so once a day, email, And I bet that Class Dojo person is elementary. I bet that's elementary. All right, so we got email, Class Dojo. We'll wait another moment to see if anybody else has a parent communication. Okay, Class Dojo, elementary. Okay. All right, we're going to keep on going. So it sounds like via email and only when there is a problem. Yes, we have Infinite Campus. We're going to talk about that. Whoever said that, text messaging. All right. So, yep, usually when there's a problem. All right. So thank y'all for sharing your thoughts. I see. Oh, Skyward. That's a new one. I haven't heard of that one. Skyward. Okay. All right. So it sounds like we're receiving communication in some form, shape, form, or fashion from our teachers currently. So let's dive into this first question. What are my child's behavioral strengths and areas of growth? So we're going to talk about for each question why this is an important question for you to ask, what key information you're listening for that teacher to share with you, and then your follow-up questions and next steps based on the teacher's response. All right, so let's dive in. So this first one, behaviorally, what are my child's strengths and areas of growth? So why do you want to ask this question? So first of all, you want to know what your child is doing well in terms of behavior because you want to be able to recognize them, you want to be able to celebrate them, and you want to be able to encourage them at home to really be able to build on their strengths. So, you definitely want to know and understand what your child is doing well in that classroom. Now, on the flip side, the areas of growth. So a lot of times you and your child's teacher might not be on the same page about what behavior should constitute a phone call home or other communication. And this is where, and parents, I'm telling you, I've been in schools for a long time. Kids are different at school. They're different, right? So a lot of times our kids get away with a lot of things because as a parent, there's a lot of behaviors that are not acceptable to you in your home or when they're out with you, but they get away with a lot because a lot of times that teacher is busy. So they don't have time to call home, for every little behavior or, they let a lot of things slide before they actually reach out to you. So a lot of times at school, your child has a way longer leash, right, for behavior than they may have with you at home, right? And so your child may be displaying some negative behaviors in the classroom that aren't acceptable to you at your house, but the teacher might be letting it slide or they just don't have time to communicate with you like that because of all the other things that teachers have on their plate. Or if it's a behavior that's not to them a big deal. So maybe your child comes to class, if they're an older student, they come to class tardy, a couple of minutes tardy 3 to 4 times a week. But I mean, they do their work, so I don't have time to call you. But to you, no, that's not acceptable. They need to come to class on time. Why are they late? Right? Or maybe your child, they have to tell them 2 or 3 times the same direction before they get started on work. Well, again, to you, that's not acceptable. But because the teacher doesn't have time to reach out to you to communicate that, right? Your child is getting away with that in the classroom and you're not aware of it. So that's one reason why you want to make sure you ask, okay, where does my child have room to grow in your class in terms of their behavior? All right. So here's what you're listening for from the teacher when you ask that question. So number one, you're looking for insight. How is your child interacting with adults and other children? So again, a lot of times there's things they know, right? They know what's acceptable to you, but you're not there. So, I got a little bit of leeway because my mom's not here. She can't see me. And I know my teacher's not going to call her over that little thing. So I can get away with that. Right. So you're listening for how do they interact with adults and other children? You also want to know how prompt and consistent is your child in meeting the classroom expectations. So does that teacher have to tell them multiple times to do the same thing? They know that's not acceptable to you, right? That shouldn't be acceptable at school. Okay. You're also listening for how well does your child focus and remain on task to complete assigned work? So is it taking them a long time to do the classwork that should be taking them 10 minutes, but it's taking them longer because they're not focused, right? You're also looking for how is your child managing conflict or relationships with other children? So, is your child joining in the group when another child's getting bullied or picked on, right? They didn't say the comment, but they're in the group, laughing or being a part of it. You want to listen for those kinds of things. And then is your child willing to take accountability for their actions? So those are some of the things that you're listening for when you ask that question. Can you share with me behaviorally, what are my child's strengths? And then what are their areas of growth in your class? All right, and then follow-ups for you. So next steps based on the feedback that the teacher gives. So specifically thinking about areas of growth, right? So you want to make sure you ask that teacher, okay, well, what are your next steps for supporting my child in this area? So if it's an area of growth or behavior that your child can improve upon, what's your plan to support my child in this area? And then how can we maintain communication regarding my child's progress and improving this behavior? So I saw somebody say in the Padlet that they only hear from the teacher when there's a problem or, when there's a big issue, right? How can we keep ongoing communication so that I can know how is my child making progress in this area? Because I can't support you, right, if I don't know what's happening in the classroom. I can't support or reinforce the plans you put in place. Okay. And then you also want to clearly communicate your expectations for your child's behavior at home and school. So letting that teacher know what's acceptable to you as a parent and what is not. Okay. And then any thoughts or ideas you have for addressing that particular area with your child at home. So again, if it's your child's getting to class on time or being prompt with following directions or prompt and focus on doing their work, sharing with that teacher how you plan to address it at home. And you always want to make sure that, with that teacher, we feel like a team, right? Like I'm not attacking you with these questions. I'm asking you because I'm trying to establish a team relationship with you because we're both here to support my child. Okay. So that's the first question. Behaviorally, what are my child's strengths and where do they have areas to grow? We want to make sure they're not trying to get away with those behaviors at school because they know that teacher's not calling you. Nope, I'm going to ask them, where do you have room to grow in the classroom? All right. So that is our first question. All right. So here's the big idea here, the core idea, why this is important. So asking about your child's behavioral strengths and areas of growth in the classroom will help you to make sure that you and your child's teacher are on the same page about expectations for your child's behavior, what you commit to do to support your child, and then how you're both going to communicate progress or concerns along the way. So again, it's not a situation like somebody mentioned in the icebreaker. I'm only hearing from you when there's a major problem. We've got two-way communication about how my child is progressing in this area of growth. All right, so we got our first question underway. Let's move on. So this one is a biggie, a big one. What do my child's grades represent? So again, I mentioned that this month, October, is usually report card month. So you should be getting some kind of a progress check or some kind of grade check about how your child has been doing these first 9 weeks. All right, so why is this question important for you to ask? So as many of you know, especially if your child has been in school for a while, every teacher or school or sometimes a whole district has different grading scales and weights that make up the grade on your child's report card, right? So one school might weight the grades this way, another school might do it a different way, sometimes even across one school, different teachers, right? So if your child has several teachers, one teacher might weight the grades like this, another teacher might weight them a different way. So the key thing to know here is just because your child is earning a passing grade on the report card, that does not necessarily mean that they're demonstrating mastery of the grade level content, right? So here's an example, right? So suppose your child's classwork or homework assignments are only graded for completion. So that means the teacher's only checking off whether they did it or they didn't do it, right? They're not checking if it's right or wrong. They're just giving them a grade if they completed it, or they weight those classwork grades heavier than quizzes and tests. It may be hard for you to really determine, is my child proficient in the content area, right? Is my child actually demonstrating mastery? They're not just getting grades for completing work. Are they actually mastering the content? And that's what you really want to know. A grade is, a grade can be anything. Are they actually mastering the content? And so I want to show you some data to just illustrate the point that I'm making. So those of you that live in the state of Georgia, Georgia has a way that they measure schools. It's called CCRPI. So that's the College and Career Readiness Performance Index. And I put that website down there on the bottom. So I'm showing you state data, but you can go on here and look at your child's school and you can look at the district to see this is the actual proficiency, right? So not grades. This is how students are, how much they're proficient on the actual state standards. Okay, so this is our state, Georgia. So as you can see in elementary math, only about 40% of the students are actually proficient in elementary school math, right? 3rd to 5th grade. So y'all can see down there, all those kids beginning and developing are not proficient in the Georgia math standards, right? So that would be the equivalent to if you took about 10 kids, only 4 of those 10 kids are actually proficient in math, okay? So just to give you an idea of what we're saying here. So that's math, okay, for elementary. Let's look at middle school, okay? So you guys can see the data here. Again, this is the state of Georgia. If we're talking about all the middle school students in the state of Georgia, you can see only here 25% proficient and about 12% are distinguished. Okay, so about 37% of middle schoolers in Georgia are actually proficient in the content, but I guarantee you that other, almost 70% of kids don't have F's on their report card, right? And so that's why it's important for you to ask as a parent, not just about these grades, how well is my child mastering the actual content? Okay, let's look at high school. So again, this is high school algebra 1. Okay, same thing. About 36% of the kids in our state are proficient. You can see down here, the vast majority of them are not proficient in the content. So this is what we want to know. We want to look beyond a grade. We want to know, is my child actually mastering the content? Okay, so that was math. Let's look at ELA. So again, state of Georgia. So you can see the data looks about the same. So this is reading and writing. You can see here about 40% of the kids are proficient in reading and writing in Georgia. The rest of them are not. Okay, this is middle school. Okay, so again, all the data is hovering right around 41%. And then this is high school English. Okay, so again, thinking about if you lined up 10 kids, just pick 10 kids in Georgia, only 4 of them are actually mastering the content that's being taught in school. We want to make sure that's not your child, right? We want to make sure that your child is not in that other 60%, okay? And then this other example I'm going to show you. So this is actually just a sample pull from a student's grade report. But if you look here, you can see, so scored activities are classwork and homework. So you can see this student's classwork and homework average is an 83%, but their quiz average is a 48%, right? And so depending on how this teacher weights the grades, this child could come home with a passing grade on their report card, but their parents not recognizing, well, hey, there's a discrepancy here because something is happening, right? They're not mastering the content on these assessments, but they're passing the classwork and the homework. So what's happening here, right? There's a discrepancy somewhere, okay? So just showed you that to kind of get an idea of this is what's happening. And why this is important too is because what's happening across the country is you have thousands of high school seniors that are graduating and going to college and having to take all of these remedial classes, and their parents are thinking, well, I thought my child had this high GPA in high school. Well, yeah, they were getting grades, but they weren't actually proficient in mastering the content, right? And so that didn't come through until they got to college, and now my child's going to take 5 years to graduate because they have to take all these remedial classes because I wasn't being told what they actually knew and what they didn't. Okay, so this is why we really want to dig in and make sure we understand what do these grades mean. Okay, so here's the key information that you're listening for. So the first thing, how are classwork and homework assignments weighted versus quizzes, tests, and projects, right? So if they have a weighting system that they use, you want to make sure you understand, okay, how are you weighting these different assignments that my child is getting, okay? You also want to find out, is there a gap between how my child's performing on the classwork and homework and how they're performing on the quizzes, tests, and projects? And so if you saw that previous sample I just showed you, right? That was the case with this child. There's a huge gap between how they're performing on the classwork and homework and how they're performing on the quizzes and the tests. So we want to find out why is that, okay? And then you also want to find out, how is my child performing on benchmark or district assessments, and how does that compare to their grades in the classroom? So just about every district has some kind of benchmark test that your child is taking, usually at the beginning of the year, maybe every quarter. And a lot of times parents are not getting that data. You don't even know your child took a benchmark assessment. You don't know what it's called. What are they doing with the scores? How do I see it, right? So you want to ask them, is my child taking a benchmark assessment? How do I see the data? What is it, right? When do I know it's coming up? Because that's going to give you a more true assessment than the grades of how your child is doing as it relates to that grade level mastery of content, okay? All right, so here are your follow-up questions or next steps, right? So one, you want to ask that teacher, okay, how do I access my child's benchmark score? So that, again, I'm pretty sure most districts take some kind of benchmark assessment to kind of see where kids are in relation to the state standards before they take that end of the year test. You want to ask them, what test is it and how do I see the scores? Like, can you send me a score report? Where do I see it? And typically if you ask, they'll send it home, but a lot of times they don't. And if they do send it home, they don't explain to you, what does this mean, right? So make sure, if you don't understand it, call up there and ask them, explain to me, what does this mean? So I can know where my child is in terms of mastering the actual content, okay? You also want to ask that teacher if there's a gap between your child's performance on classwork and homework assignments and their performance on the tests and the district benchmarks, how are they addressing those gaps in the classroom? So are you doing small groups? Are you doing one-on-one instruction? Like, how are you addressing these gaps in the classroom? And then on the flip side, right, if your child is one of those 4, so if you're in the state of Georgia, your child's one of those 4 that's demonstrating that mastery, how are you pushing my child? So are there opportunities for acceleration, enrichment in your class? And what does that look like, okay? So these are all questions that we want to make sure that we ask. This one, probably out of all the 5 questions, this one is one of the most important because you really want to wrap your head around and understand how is my child doing in relation to the actual standards? Are they proficient in the content? Okay. And so here's the core idea. Like I just told you, we just looked at the data. And again, I invite you, if you're in Georgia, go on that website, look at your child's school, look at your child's district, and see specifically how is your child's school doing in terms of mastery on the state standards. But on average in Georgia, only 4 out of 10 students in 3rd through 12th grades are actually proficient in math and ELA. Okay, so you want to, as a parent, get into the habit, look beyond that grade. So yes, it's exciting. Oh, they got an A, they got a B. No, don't jump up and down yet. What does this mean, right? We want to find out where they actually stand regarding mastery of the grade level content. That's what we want to know. Are they mastering the grade level content? Let's look beyond this grade. Is my child mastering this content? Okay. All right, let's keep going. So we're about halfway through. We're on question 3. What should I expect my child to know and be able to do this semester? How do I know? Right? What should my child know and be able to do? Okay. So why is this question important? So you want to make sure that you have a clear understanding of what the instructional milestones for your child's grade level are, so you can have realistic expectations for your child's performance. So sometimes, especially if you have more than one child, right, you might get worried like, well, my older child they were reading their sight words faster than this, my younger child, or, my other child was doing this, differently in math more than this child, right? But if you have a clear understanding of, as a grade level, what they should be doing, then you'll know whether your child's right on pace, or whether they're lagging behind, or whether they need additional support, right? And then it also helps you to prioritize what skills and what concepts you should be practicing with them at home, okay? So you want to ask them, okay, by this point in the year, what should my child know? What should they be able to do at this point in this particular grade level? So this is a site that I love. It's called greatschools.org. And here's the website here if you want to jot that down. They have a page on their website called Milestones. So with this site, they go through each grade level at a time, and I'm going to show you a quick little video in just a second. But they basically give you a breakdown of the big key things that your child should know and be able to do in that grade level. So if you go on the site, let's say your child's a 5th grader, if you click 5th grade, they'll actually show you videos, they'll show you work samples, right? Like, this is what a piece of 5th grade writing should look like. And then you can look at your child's writing and say, okay, well, wait, they're far away, or yeah, they're surpassing that, right? Or if you have a high school student, hey, this is what a high school student should be doing and producing at this level, and just kind of giving you some comparisons and some milestones to help you get a clear understanding of what your child should know and be able to do in each grade level. So I'm going to play a quick little video about this site. Let me know if you can hear it. I think I shared my sound.
Kids grow up.
Can y'all hear? Oh, could y'all hear that? Oh, what happened?
Yes, we can hear it.
Okay. We went all the way back to the beginning. Okay, let's go. All right, here we go.
Kids grow up fast. It can be a challenge to keep up with them. Milestones videos make it easy to see if your child is on track in school by showing what success looks like in the core disciplines. Reading, writing, math. Take the question mark out of the education equation. Click on your child's grade level and get a clear understanding of what success looks like.
All right. So again, I love that site. It's greatschools.org/milestones, and they have kinder through high school on there. So you can always go on there. Like, so they have videos, they have work examples that you can look at to just kind of get a feel for what your child should be doing at a particular point in the grade level. Okay, so when you ask the teacher this question, here's some information that you're listening for, or some kind of follow-ups that you might ask. So for math, you want to ask, okay, what are the key conceptual understandings my child should grasp by December? So we know right now we're in the first semester, right? So what are the key things my child should understand, right, during this first semester when it comes to concepts? And then when I think about procedural skills, what procedural skills should they know how to do, right? So should they know a certain number of times tables by December, right? What should they understand about fractions by December? So you want to get an idea of that from math. What are the key concepts? And then what are the key skills that they should be able to do? And then for ELA, okay, asking about writing. So what amount of writing should my child be able to produce independently at this point in the school year? So should they be able to, for the kindergarten, first, second grade, should they be able to write a complete sentence? Should they be writing a paragraph? Should they be writing a multi-paragraph essay? Okay. What key grammar skills should my child understand by this point in the year? So should they know the parts of speech, right? What should they know in terms of punctuation? And then when it comes to reading, where should my child be with their phonics, their reading fluency, the vocabulary, and their comprehension by this point in the school year, right? So how many sight words should they know by now? How many chapter books should they have read by this point in the year? And so these are some questions you want to ask, again, just to give you a realistic view, right, of where your child should be at this point in the school year. All right, let's continue on. Oh, we're going the wrong way. All right. And so here, the big idea is having a clear vision of what your child should know and be able to do in each subject area will help you set those realistic expectations for your child's performance. And it'll help you hold them accountable for the quality of work they should be producing, right? So if you have an idea of what a fifth grade essay should look like, then you have something to compare it to when you're looking at their work. And it'll help you to more quickly identify if they need additional support. So if they need some outside tutoring or anything like that, if you understand what they should know and be able to do at certain points in the year, it'll help you to be able to more quickly identify that. All right, we have 2 more questions. We're almost there. All right, so number 4, what skills should my child be practicing consistently at home? What should we be doing at the house? Okay, so why is this important? So we all know, especially those of you that have older students that have multiple teachers, every teacher differs in the amount and frequency of homework your child may be given. So some teachers never give homework. Your child comes home, they never have anything to do, right? Or your child comes home and they have a mountain, right? They have hours of homework to do. So it just differs by teacher, it differs by school. But for you, understanding the key skills that they should be practicing on a consistent basis will help you reinforce what they're learning in the classroom. It'll help you give them that targeted practice in the content areas, and it'll help you to build their daily study habits. And that last one is really important because so many students do not know how to study, right? The teacher tells them to go home and study for a test. They have no idea what that means. They don't know what to do when they're told to study. And so understanding what they should practice consistently will help you to build those study habits. So here's some examples, right? So for ELA, one thing that your child can always do, independent reading every day. So whether they have homework, whether they don't have homework, they should be reading every day for at least about 15 minutes, okay? Depending on what grade they're in, practicing multiplication facts or fact fluency for 5 or 10 minutes. Again, that's a quick thing they can do, whether they have homework or not. That's something they can do every day. If they have a vocabulary word list or a spelling list, that's a big one. A lot of schools have gotten away from doing spelling, right? That's something you can have them do at home to practice on your own, right? So practicing vocabulary, practicing spelling. Writing is a huge thing. A lot of our young people do not know how to, actually handwrite, right? But writing to respond to a prompt. So you can give them a composition book and a journal prompt to practice at home every day. And then this last one is really big for middle and high school students, but having them summarize their class notes in their own words every day is going to help them learn how to study, right? So even if they don't have a quiz coming up, if they don't have a test coming up, okay, take your notes from class today, and now you go back and summarize them in your own words. So just building that habit of how to go back and really think about and process the material in your own words every day, so that when you have a test, you're not cramming or, you're not trying to go back and reread all these chapters because you built a daily habit of summarizing the content in your own words every day. All right, and so the key information that you're listening for from the teacher with this question, first of all, how much homework should I expect my child to have each day, including the weekend? So do you give homework on the weekends? How much homework should my child have every day? When my child has quizzes or tests, how should they be preparing at home? So are there specific study strategies that you've taught them in class that I should be looking for them to use? Should they be bringing home a textbook? Should they have notes, guided notes? What study strategies should they be using? And then based on my child's academic performance in your class, are there any resources or tools that you recommend that they use at home for additional practice. Okay. So these are a couple of the personal ones that I love for practicing at home. And both of them are free. So both of them have a paid option, but they have a free option as well. So mobymax.com, you can jot that down. That is a free website, but they have every subject on there that you can name, every subject, right? For kindergarten, I think it goes up to 8th or 9th grade. But that's a site your child can go on and practice spelling, vocabulary, reading, math facts, you name it, right? Science, social studies, they have writing prompts on there. So again, especially if you have a teacher that's not sending home much homework, or your child seems to be coming home and they don't have anything to do, right? So that's a site they can get on and practice skills. iExcel is another one. A lot of schools actually use this one. So you can ask your child's teacher if they're using iExcel in the classroom, and if so, can you have the login so that your child can continue to practice at home? And then a library card, a good old-fashioned public library card. Yes, a library card, right? So if your child's never been to the public library, that is a good family field trip. Take them to the public library. As I mentioned, reading every day. They need to be reading every day, at least 15 minutes, because that is the separator in school. Kids that read proficiently and kids that do not. Kids that are reading every day do much better. So get them in the habit, at least 15 minutes with a book in their hand every day. It's gonna really help. Okay. All right, our last question, and then we're going to give you a chance to ask any questions that you have. The last question we have, core idea, forgot that. So the core idea here is you want to make sure that you're creating a plan to consistently practice targeted learning skills at home to help close learning gaps or accelerate your child's progress as needed. And as we mentioned, really help them to strengthen those study habits, right? Strengthening those study skills. Okay. So this last one is, what are the daily routines in your classroom? Okay, this one is super important. So we all know as Christian parents, there are many, 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 many routines and procedures that are integrated into your child's day in the classroom or the school that conflict with your beliefs and what you're teaching them at home. Okay. Additionally, your child's teacher brings their personal values, they bring their personal worldview, they bring a lot of things to the classroom if they're not born again that are opposed to biblical standards. And so as a parent, you want to make sure that you have a clear understanding of the flow of your child's day so that you can clearly communicate what routines your child can participate in and what they may not participate in. Okay. So you want to ask that question. Can you talk to me about, walk me through the day? What are the daily routines and procedures in this classroom? Okay. So this is what you're listening for. This is very important because they try to slip in a lot of things on you in public school. Okay. So this is important. So first of all, you want to ask, how do students start the day in your classroom? You want to pay attention to words like mindfulness, meditation, quiet time, okay? Because a lot of those things, like, they mask that, but they may have your child chanting or, doing some yoga or you name it. But these are the words they use to mask that. So you may have taught your child, no, we don't practice yoga. Well, the teacher didn't call it yoga. She said we were doing mindfulness, or she said we were doing stretches, right? But you want to ask, and when you hear those words, dig in and ask, okay, tell me more about that. What does that look like? What does that mean? Okay. The second one is huge. Do you allow music during independent work or class transitions? And if so, how do you determine what is appropriate for classroom use? And I have to share a quick story. So last school year, I was doing some consulting for a school district here in Georgia, and I was working with all of the high schools, but I would have to go in and do observations in the high schools. And this one particular high school, and a lot of them did it, but this one, I was walking in the hallway and it was time for the kids to transition. And they started playing like music, but loud rap music, like not censored, cussing, filthy, 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 filthy. So I'm looking around like, oh, what, am I the person that's offended? What's going on? The teachers walking around, the kids, everybody just walking around, the administrators like, this is a club, right? But I'm pretty sure they took the liberty to assume that all of these children's parents are okay with this loud music and all this cursing during every passing period. But I'm sure that many of those kids' parents, if they knew that was happening, they would be upset, right? And they would complain because I don't send my child to school for this. This is not a nightclub, right? One school I went to, they again, during the time when kids changed classes, they had some African, it sounded like some African drum and music, but it was some other language, right? But these kids don't know what is being said, right? What is being played with these children? What is this? Okay. So you want to ask that teacher, are you playing music in the classroom? How do you determine what's appropriate? What kind of music are you playing? And then the third thing is you want to ask, is social emotional learning a part of the instructional day? So again, that's a big buzzword in education, social emotional learning. If so, tell me, what does that look like, and what topics or lessons are you discussing during this time? So you're paying attention to words like belonging, diversity, inclusion, tolerance, okay? All of the buzzwords that we all know. But again, a lot of times, especially if you have younger kids, you've taught them that certain things are not acceptable, but the teacher didn't call it that. So I didn't know that that's what we were doing, because she called it something else, right? So you want to make sure that you're asking these questions. Tell me about these daily routines that are taking place in your class. I need to understand, what is my child participating in outside of non-instructional time, right? What's happening during the non-instructional time in this classroom? All right, so here are your follow-up questions and next steps. So if there are daily routines in the classroom that conflict with your beliefs, you want to communicate that to the teacher and to your child that they may not participate. So, hey, we don't practice yoga. We don't celebrate Halloween. We don't, whatever, right? My child's not allowed to read that novel with y'all. We don't read Harry Potter. We don't practice witchcraft, right? So you want to make it clear to the teacher and your child, no, my child may not participate in that. And then you want to ask about alternative activities that your child can do during that time. So is there seat work that they can do independently at their desk? If it's, mindfulness and y'all are doing, yoga or whatever you're doing, is there an independent activity that my child can do at their desk? Can they get a pass to go to the media center or the library, right? Let's come up with an alternative plan. And just know this area is challenging, right? That teacher might give you some pushback. So just know that, if you feel like you guys are not getting to a point of agreement on an alternative plan, you can request a conference with that child's teacher and the administrator. Okay, so me and the teacher are not seeing eye to eye, so I need to take the next step. Let's have a conference with teacher and an administrator, but we need to come up with an alternative plan because my child is not allowed to participate in this activity in your classroom, okay? So again, very important, you want to make sure that you thoroughly understand the daily routines and procedures in your child's classroom so that you and your child can create a plan to address any activities that are in conflict with your Christian beliefs, okay? All right, so those are our 5 questions. So you can either use the chat or you can take yourself on mute. Does anyone have any additional questions that you would like to ask, or anything that I can go back to in any of the previous questions that came to mind that you have a question about?
I have one, Danielle. Thank you for this webinar. It was really good. Made me think about when my daughter was in kindergarten, like you said. I asked one of those questions about what does a day-to-day routine look like, and she did mention mindfulness. And when I drilled a little bit more, she did say that it was yoga. And like you said, of course I received pushback, but so during that time, I guess of their after recess or lunchtime to get the kids to quiet down, she had the other kids practicing yoga. So she said, well, I'll just let your daughter read a book or something, while the other kids do their yoga and stretching. And, like you said, it's just very true. You have to say something, even if you get that pushback, but not allowing that to, dictate your children. So I definitely want to thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely, absolutely. You are welcome. Anybody else have any other questions? All right, if not, we have about a minute left. So there is my contact info on the screen. So again, BTG Education, under that umbrella, we do education consulting. So we work with schools, teachers, parents. We have BTG Medical Academy, and then of course, math tutoring. So if you think of any questions later, or anything that you need support with, there is my contact information. You can feel free to jot that down. Or if you have, a conference coming up, or hey, this is what the teacher said, what should I do? What's my next step? Feel free to reach out.
Hey,
All
Danielle.
Right. Oh, I'm sorry. Go
Real
ahead.
quick. This is DJ here.
Hey.
How can I access this video? Is it recorded? Will it be posted somewhere?
Yes. So this is going to be on the CBWN YouTube channel.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Appreciate you.
You're welcome. And then, of course, this is the CBWNI website. information. So please make sure you check out that website. Again, make sure you look at our event page. So on the 19th, as I mentioned, is the brunch. We have the Fall Festival on the 26th. We have Elect Ladies Bible Study every Wednesday. So lots and lots of good things going on at CBWNI. So please make sure that you go to that website and check us out. Okay. All right. So I'm going to stop the recording and thank you guys so much for hanging out with us today. And I hope you have a great rest of the day.